Alright, so Don't Breathe 2 is coming out to theaters, so we are talking about Don't Breathe #1 today. Now, I had never seen this movie, I had never heard of this movie, I didn't know anything about this movie, but I saw a trailer for the second one, thought it looked pretty interesting, so picked up a copy of the original, gave it a watch, took some notes. Let's, you know what, before I get into this, let me just say this is the kind of quote unquote horror movie, it's more of a thriller, that I like. This is my kind of, this is my kind of horror movie. I've mentioned this in other videos, but any horror movie that's going to have supernatural elements like demon possession or the right kind of ghosts or anything like that will freak me out. Stuff with mirrors, that messes with me. And I don't particularly like that, right? I'm not saying those are bad movies. I don't enjoy those because that makes it difficult for me to sleep for a couple days, right? And yeah, I'm a baby. That's fine. You can say that, whatever. That's just my reality. So this kind of movie that doesn't feature anything supernatural, there's nothing crazy going on, it's just bad people doing bad things. This to me is a much more engaging, entertaining experience that I can enjoy in the moment while I'm watching it, and I can think about it later. But it's not gonna scare me in a traditional sense. It's not gonna keep me up at night. I wasn't sure what kind of movie this was, so I watched it very early in the morning, so that I could have plenty of things to put in my mind afterwards. But that's my short version of this. Is I think this is a pretty enjoyable movie while you're watching it. If you've got friends that like horror movies, this seems like a fine one to kind of put on that could be kind of in the background as people are talking or chatting or hanging out or different things like that. I don't think it's groundbreaking or going to blow many people away, but it's the kind of thing that I like. So yeah, let's get into my notes. Some of this stuff is going to have some spoilers, I imagine. Okay, so my first note is Blizzard. So I don't know the actor's name, but there's an actor, I think most people probably know him from the Goosebumps movies, but I know him as a character in the comics called Blizzard. I forget what his name is, from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he's the only actor that I recognize in this movie. Not really relevant, just I like it when I see actors that I liked that aren't super popular in other things. I'm glad that I didn't know most of these actors because that helps me be more immersed in the movie when I don't recognize them. But I kind of like this guy. So we follow in this movie this group of 3 friends. 2 of them are dating in some form, and then there's kind of a third wheel, who's the Blizzard guy, and that guy who's kind of the more quiet, nice guy, his father works for a company that makes and or sells security systems. So he's pretty smart. He kind of knows how to disable those. He knows a lot about the legality and laws around robbery versus armed robbery, breaking and entering, what it means if you bring a gun to a robbery, right? All these different things. He's like the brains. And the other, the boyfriend, whose name is Money, that's subtle, he's kind of like the brawn. He's the one that'll bust the lock and chloroform people if they're there and blah, blah, blah. And then the female, her name is Rocky. And she doesn't seem to clearly have a role, but she's kind of like, she can get into tight spaces a little bit easier than the boys. So she's also there. But this is this thing that the 3 of them do together. And so we see them do one job early in the movie, so we kind of get the idea of what they're doing. And then they're talking about, the big job, this big one. We do this one, and we never have to do it again. Stuff you've seen before. Like I said, this movie is not groundbreaking. And Rocky says a couple lines that I paraphrased in my notes. Something along the lines of, so Alex is the name of the quiet one. And he's got these rules where they don't take cash, And the total haul has to be under, I think, $10,000, because that's where the cutoff is for, if they get caught, what their prison sentence can be. If it's under $10,000 worth of valuables versus over 10,000, right? So, like, he's the one that comes up with these rules that keep them safe, right? And so they want to go in. They get a tip on this guy that's got at least $300,000 worth of cash in his house. And he's like, this is a bad idea. 1, we don't take cash. 2, we don't take anything over $10,000. So, like, that's bad things, right? And they're trying to convince him otherwise. Again, they're saying, we do this one, we never have to do it again. And she says something along the lines of, we won't get caught. Because it's like, if we get caught, that's blah, blah, blah. And she's like, we won't get caught. And then she says something else that I didn't write down at the time, but it went back later. And basically the vibe was, we'll be careful, we won't get caught. And I expected him, because, you've seen this character in movies before. He's quiet at the beginning, and then he kind of, what's a family-friendly way of saying this? He gains some confidence throughout the movie, and he kind of stands up for himself. And he's like, no, like, listen to me. So I expected him to kind of push back and be like, the reason we haven't gotten caught is because we're following these rules that I am putting in place to keep you guys safe. Right? And by not following those rules, we are more likely to get caught. It's going to be worse for us. The way we be careful is to not do these things. That's what I expected him to say, and that never comes up. So, I guess if we had gotten that, then we wouldn't have gotten the movie. So, sometimes characters have to make poor decisions for the movie to happen. That's a thing that happens, and we just have to deal with it for the sake of the movie. Alright, so then I wrote down my next note. So, they know how to disable alarms. They know how to knock out people with chloroform bombs, as they call them. They've got, like, some kind of treat that they throw when there's a guard dog that's got some kind of sleeping agent in it that puts the dog to sleep. So, like, they know their stuff, and they know specifically that the houses that they're targeting have this one specific security system, right? At no point do any of them wear any kind of mask or facial covering or anything. And I'm just like, that this person cares enough to have a high-end security system. They might also have cameras that aren't necessarily part of that security system. The areas around where they are might have cameras that are going to catch you going to and from, but at no point from their car, through the whole robbery, back to their car, do we see them covering up their faces at all? So I don't know if that's just one of those things where it's a movie and movie stars want their faces to be on screen and not wearing masks, but that kind of took me out of it because I was just like, there's so many other things that are trying to show them being smart and clever. It's just like, cover your face. What are you doing? So one of those things that they do is that they take off their shoes when they're in the house of this person that they're robbing throughout the majority of the runtime of this movie. Because they're doing it while he's home. So I guess the idea is they're going to make less noise in their socks than they would. They don't explain why they do it. That's what I assumed. But I don't know. Maybe there's another reason. Maybe it's to not track their shoe prints around the house. I don't know. They don't explain why it is. But the female, Rocky, she gets in the house first, and the only way they can find to get into the house is to break this very small window that she's small enough to crawl through, and then she goes around and unlocks the door from the inside. And in that process, there's a shard of glass that falls onto the floor, and as she walks over it, it gets stuck in her shoe, and she hears that it's like clacking on the wood or whatever. She's walking through. So she just takes it out of her shoe and puts it on the floor, like in the hallway. And then a couple seconds later, she lets the guys in and tell them to take their shoes off. So I've seen movies before. I'm fully expecting someone's going to step on this piece of glass and shred their foot open. That doesn't end up happening. The glass plays a different role later on in the movie. But I'm just like, if you know you're going to be taking your shoes off, why are you leaving this big chunk of glass in the middle of the hallway. Like, she didn't even push it to the side. It's just, like, in the middle of the floor. And, again, like, they have a purpose for it later on, but the thing that it does could have easily been done in other ways. It makes no sense if you're robbing a house and you and your friends are going to be walking around without shoes to leave shards of glass on the floor where you're going to be walking. I know that sounds like a very small nitpick, but like that was probably my biggest problem with the whole movie, which I guess means that I didn't have many problems with the movie. But like, just come on, that's so dumb. Okay, so the big thing with this burglary in particular is that this guy that they're robbing is a war veteran who is blind. And they don't, Money knows that he's blind. He's the one that gets the tip. But he doesn't tell that to Rocky and Alex until they're there. But they all know that he's an Army vet. So I'm just like, first of all, if this guy catches you, you know he's just going to destroy you, right? He's got combat training. You're a bunch of punk kids who don't even think to wear a mask or pick up glass off the floor. So Alex makes a comment about, like, I think he does, about, you know, that they shouldn't be messing with this military guy. So that's like the first big red flag, other than the two red flags of stealing too much money and stealing cash, which they're not supposed to do. But then when they get there, Money mentions that he's blind, and Alex is like, isn't it kind of messed up to, you know, rob a blind guy? And Money has a line where he's like, just because he's blind doesn't mean he's a saint or whatever. Like, you know, get over yourself, whatever. But like, if you're going into an environment that is pretty much exclusively lived in by someone who's blind, that means that lighting is probably not going to meet your needs. That means that if there's a situation where you can't have light, you are at a huge disadvantage to the person who doesn't need light anyway. And they almost reference that right before they go into the house. You know, all the lights are off, and so Money says something like, all the lights are off, he's probably asleep. And Alex is like, he's blind, the lights wouldn't be on, it doesn't mean that he's asleep. And then Rocky chimes in, she's like, it's 2 a.m, he's going to be asleep, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So like, we kind of get that concept thrown in there of he's blind, so he doesn't need to have the lights on, but nobody thinks of the fact that, like, oh, he might have it as part of his security system that all the lights get shut down and the people can't see anything. And then so I haven't seen Brightburn, but Brightburn is kind of marketed as What If Superman but bad. So one of my first thoughts is I find out that they're going to go rob this blind military veteran. And again, I didn't really know what kind of movie this was, but one of my first thoughts was, this is going to be evil Daredevil, right? Because Daredevil's whole thing is that he doesn't need to see, so he picks dark environments, or if he's in a place with a lot of light, he'll shatter all the light so that no one else can see, and then he's got the upper hand, and he's got the fighting experience necessary to take these people down, right? So I'm like, this is going to be like Brightburn, but for Daredevil. And that's not, you know, he's not a superhero. That's not exactly how it works, but that idea, it comes into play in a big way. And then my next note, I wrote down Reverse Invisible Man. So, you know, we've seen Invisible Man movies where the attacker, the instigator, the person you're trying to hide from is invisible, right? So you don't know where they're at. And we've seen that done in lots of different ways, and people like Nando from Nando V Movies have gone on and on about, oh, it would be super easy to stop an invisible person. Just do this and do this and do this, right? And this is kind of the reverse of that. Because here, the person that they're attacking can't see them. So it's almost like we're following the invisible person, like we're seeing stuff from their point of view, except they're not invisible. The guy that they're attacking is just blind. So we get kind of the same type of reactions as you would in an Invisible Man situation, where he's like listening. You know, the movie's called Don't Breathe because they realize that they can't make a lot of sound. He's listening for footsteps. He's listening for cell phones vibrating. He's listening for different sounds, and having to rely on things other than his sight to figure out where these people are, which, like I said, is similar to what we'd seen in an Invisible Man movie. It's just that they're not invisible and this guy just can't see. So that was kind of interesting to kind of Uno reverse that idea, and instead of having the protagonists like trying to find the villain that they can't see, and here our protagonists, even though they're not great people, our protagonists are the people that cannot be seen, but they're still the ones trying to hide, right? Like they still don't have the upper hand. It was pretty interesting. Okay, so then I wrote down 42 minutes in. Now is when it starts getting weird. So this movie, I liked it, but I think a lot of people would say that it's slow. It has a very slow start. There's a lot of build-up, and I'm okay with that. Some other people might not be. But 42 minutes, and I felt like you would know this is coming, but I guess it depends on what kind of movies that you watch. But I knew once we had that setup of there's a retired guy, and he's blind, and we're going to rob him, and it's going to be easy, right? Obviously, something's going to happen. And the angle that I kind of felt was the obvious angle is that this guy is not going to be as helpless as these people think he's going to be. He's going to fight back, right? And that's kind of where my thought process stopped, because I try not to theorize too much because then I get disappointed. Well, it gets there, and then it goes another notch. And, I don't know how much I want to say in this video, but suffice to say that when Money mentioned that just because he's blind doesn't mean that he's a saint, this man is certainly no saint. And he's got his own skeletons in his closet and his own things that he doesn't want found out. And even though it's kind of weird because our protagonists are not good people, you certainly do not feel bad for the guy that they're robbing. By about 42 minutes into this movie, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a bad dude, and I don't care that he's getting robbed. So the movie really picks up there, and I wouldn't say that it's like action-packed until the end, but like it goes until the end. It keeps the suspense high, even though it's not like super-duper action-packed. You know, this is it's not a Blumhouse movie, but it's like a Blumhouse movie in that it's pretty cheap. Doesn't rely on a lot of effects, but I think it maintains the suspense a good percentage. So we get one, as I mentioned, I didn't mention it, I didn't reference it, as I suggested might happen. The blind man turns off all the power to his house so that nobody can see anything. So we get these shots, and I kind of like the way this was done. Because, you know, what do you do when you want to show a scene in a movie where no character can see anything, where it's pitch black? Do you show a pitch black screen? That's not very engaging. Do you show a lowly lit scene and trust the audience that we can see what's going on, but the characters can't, right? It's a hard thing to do. So what we get in this is that we almost see like a night vision style visuals, where it's like grayed out, black and white, really low quality. And so we get, you know, we understand that this isn't literally what the characters are seeing, but we, the audience, want to be able to tell what's happening, even while the characters don't. And so we get this sequence where they can't see anything, and they're in this like labyrinth of shelves and different things in this guy's basement. And you know, there's some classic Invisible Man type scenarios where they're right next to this guy and they don't realize it, and then something makes a noise and he shoots, and then they realize that he's right there in front of them. But you can't gasp, you can't run away. At certain points, you know, they take damage, they get injured, and people die. And like, you can't cry, you can't scream, you can't audibly react, or else he's gonna get you next. So I really enjoyed I mean, I didn't dislike the first half of this movie, but I really enjoyed the second half of this movie. My next note is just, yeah, don't go into a blind man's house because he turns the power off, and have the disadvantage. And I don't think it's super well done, but they do address it, right? Because they're gonna have phones, right? And your phones have flashlights. One character's phone, he says, goes dead because it's 2 a.m., right? So it wasn't super well charged, and they thought this was going to be a quick job, and it's unclear how long it lasts, but it lasts a long time. So that's the one character, and then the other character that's still alive at this point, I think she drops her phone, and the battery busts out or something like that, and I don't think she ever gets it back. So they do address why neither of them have, a flashlight in their pocket at that point. I don't know. Yeah, I still think if you're going to rob a house, you're going to charge your phone up. But I don't think it's a great explanation, but they did address it. They didn't forget it. They didn't leave it out. So I give them credit for that. So they're going through all these ordeals. They realize that they've messed with the wrong guy. They picked the wrong house, right? And it's also established that, all the houses, 4 blocks around are, abandoned. No one's going to hear them scream. No one's going to hear gunshots, right? And so basically they get trapped. This guy has locks in his house that you need keys to get out of the house. So they are trapped in this house. He's boarded up the window that they came in from. All the other windows have bars over them or some other thing. So Alex, the guy who understands the security systems, he wants to reactivate the security system because it's going to alert the police. And he's like, even if we get caught, with the stuff that we've seen in this guy's house, the police are not going to care why we're here, right? And I think even earlier on, he's like, let's just come clean to the cops. We just need to get out of here. And then at a later point, he's like, they're not even going to care, right? Let's just get out of here. But Rocky's character, she says something, she's like, but if we do that, we're not going to get the money. And it's just your boyfriend is dead at this point. You're trapped in this house where you can't see anything, and there's a man fully capable of killing you, actively trying to kill you. And there's another thing that I'm not mentioning here, because I don't think it's relevant to what I have to say, but it's another big thing in the movie. That has also happened, and it's you're still just thinking about this money? And we see a little bit of her in her home life, and her mom is not great to her. She's got a kid that she wants to protect and get away from her. So we get why she wants to get away, but it's you're gonna die for money. Come on. And it's just again, none of these characters are good people, but they are the protagonists, right? So you're inclined to root for them. And at that point, I stopped rooting for this girl. I'm anything you get into from this point, it's kind of on you, right? Not in a real world situation, right? I'm not a victim blamer, but I'm she's a victim, but she's also robbing this guy's house, right? So I'm just you have a chance to get out. You know the dangers involved here, and you're still only thinking about money. Yeah, you're gonna die, and I'm not gonna feel bad for you when you do. That's where I was at that point in the movie. Okay, so my note that I wrote down is, money is more important than living. Yep. Okay, so I skipped over one note that just says, nice guy, not so nice after all. So Alex, who's the nice guy throughout this whole movie, as I said, there's something else that happens in this movie that I don't really want to give away, but his reaction to it and his selfishness in the moment kind of reframes how I saw the character. Because, you've seen this, like I said, you've seen this character before. He's the nice guy that's doing these dangerous things because his friends do it or because he's pressured into doing it and blah, 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 blah. But, the choice that he wants to make at this point in the movie, just wow, dude, you are not a good person. I thought you were kind of in this against your will, but you got your own problems, and I don't feel bad for you either. So we get to the point where one character has managed to get out of the house alive, They go. I'm gonna try to keep this gender neutral so I don't give everything away. They go back to their car, but they are chased down by the homeowner's dog. This big vicious Rottweiler, maybe? I don't know. And they get to the car. And it didn't click with me at first, but the car was not locked. They just left their car unlocked in the middle of nowhere, really. They get in the car, and they the dog jumps up to attack them. It grabs this bag that they're carrying with all the money. It rips the bag off, but they get away. They get inside the car, and they're like, okay, I'm in here. I'm good. I'm safe. But the passenger door, where this character was before, has the window rolled down. And this is an old car where the window has to be rolled up manually. So this character reaches over and frantically tries to roll up the window before the dog can get in through this open window. And I'm just like, you left your car not only unlocked, but with the windows down in this horrible neighborhood. And the reason I know it's unlocked because then later we find out that this character does not have the keys for the car. The keys are with one of the characters that has died. So they get upset because they can't drive away because they don't have the keys. So the car was left unlocked with the windows down, which is just like, what are you doing? Come on. Oh, man. Okay. That was my last note. So, a couple things in this movie that are weird, but like I said, this is my kind of horror movie, thriller, suspense, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. So we get one character that survives, one protagonist that survives, and then the antagonist. It's kind of a reveal at the end, but at one point I thought he was dead, but he was not dead. And even though the protagonists successfully called the police to his house, the skeletons in his closet were not found. He gets away with the things that he has done. So I don't know if the sequel is going to follow both of these characters. Maybe it's going to follow one or the other. Or maybe it's going to be one of those sequels that focuses on completely new characters. I don't really know. I have seen the trailer, but I don't remember because I saw it before I watched this movie and it didn't really stick with me. So I am looking forward to the next movie. I don't have super duper high expectations because this movie did have a lot of flaws. But I imagine that while I'm there in the theater, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be engaged. I'm going to be... I already said the word engaged. That's the word I want to use again. But I feel like I'm going to be into it. I feel like I'm going to be into the story, even if there are some weird things that I think about afterwards. So those are my thoughts on Don't Breathe. You can let me know if you have any thoughts, but that's everything that I have to say. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.